Eloise is the fever dream no one remembers, but for those of us who do, let's take a second to talk about it. I mean, seriously, Julie Andrews is in this movie. But anyway, let's get started talking about the girl who is a whirlwind of trouble. So, Eloise lives at the Plaza Hotel, and she is 6, which, in my opinion, represents 6 times the trouble. I mean, seriously. Watching children behave in movies might be the strongest form of birth control. And yes, she is a nightmare, but an adorable one at that. And just maybe the smartest one out of everyone, proving that when it comes to wisdom, age might be just a number. So immediately when the movie starts, we meet Mr. Salamoni, the manager at the plaza who is really stressed out about the big debutante ball they're throwing in less than 2 days. Yeah, he's one of those everything has to be perfect types. And the one thing at this hotel that isn't perfect is Eloise. And just like when you speak evil's name, evil shall appear, we as audiences finally get a chance to meet our title character. And then we go through her morning of terror, complete with all of our favorites. Disrupting guests, playing tricks on a man whose mental health is hanging by a thread, and bullying her tutor out of giving her a proper education. And if you're wondering, like any normal human being would, where is her mother during all of this? Well, she is conveniently on a business trip in Paris, so Eloise is left under the care of a nanny. Which, if you ask me, is the sketchiest thing I've heard all day. But anyway, after Eloise is finished with her before-noon torture, she sets her sight on the mission of the day, finding a way to get to the debutante ball. Because her mother was a debutante, she has grace. And in the pursuit of her ultimate goal, she discovers the secret that everyone was trying but failing to keep from her. Because kids always find out. So not only is there going to be a ball, but a prince is coming to see if he wants to use the hotel for future business endeavors. And just like that, Eloise has a brilliant beyond brilliant plan. That the prince, without a single say in the matter, just became Eloise's date to the ball. And so Eloise goes to sleep that night with her eyes on the prize. Then, just like that, the next day comes. And of course, Eloise starts her "how has this little girl not been arrested yet" morning routine. And in the process, she comes across a young boy who is amused by her mischief. Naturally, being her kind of overbearing and a lot pushy self, Eloise marches over to the boy and introduces herself. The boy then introduces himself as Leon, and Eloise basically kidnaps the boy and forces him to finish her morning routine with her. Eloise and Leon get into heaps more trouble, until Leon looks like he's having second thoughts. But then he mentions in passing that he's never really seen New York, despite living there. And Eloise thinks this is downright unacceptable. So, the two then get on a horse-drawn carriage and cruise around the city. On the ride, we learn that Leon's mom passed away, and that him and his dad aren't the closest people out there. He then tells Eloise that his mom and him used to watch the stars together, and how much he misses her. And red alert! Red alert! Looking at stars is something you want to remember. So after that moment, sweet enough to make the hardest of hearts cry, Eloise rushes off to a super important meeting with her mom's lawyer, leaving Leon all alone. Which is definitely something that comes back to bite her later on. Now, as Eloise is in her super critical meeting, Mr. Salamone is stressed to the max. And here's why. Firstly, nothing is going right with the debutante ball. And secondly, Mr. Salamone learns that the prince that was supposed to be showing up today is actually the prince's son, and that he was supposedly already dropped off, meaning that Mr. Salamone has no idea where the little prince is. But with a touch of dramatic irony, we as audiences are let in on the secret that the little prince that was supposed to be showing up today is actually Leon, meaning that Eloise just misplaced one of the most important people in New York. So, in between Mr. Salamone freaking out and having like 12 breakdowns per second, we flash sideways to Eloise's tutor romancing a rich debutante who has serious, "Mommy, I don't want to marry a rich man and go to college. I want to travel the world and study poetry" syndrome. Which, honestly, me too, sweetheart. And then there's a thing with Nanny and a guy named Sir Wilkes. Honestly, this movie has enough side plots to make your head spin. But anyway, back to the main event. Mr. Salamone and the Big Prince have now contacted the police to help search for Leon. And then Eloise stumbles into the middle of the chaos and hears that all of this is because they're searching for her mysterious prince, who, by the way, is still supposed to be her date to the ball. So, naturally, she has to get a glimpse at the picture they're using for identification. And then she's all, "Wait a minute, that's Leon." And the police are all like, "Girl, wait a damn minute, you know who this is?" And so Eloise marches off to show them all that she has just saved the day. But it turns out that neither her nor the lady who is running the carriage and dropped him off actually know where Leon is. And then the Big Prince really lets Eloise have it, which is fair because she lost his son. But as Nanny says, she is 6. Eloise then heads back to her room, defeated but determined that she can still save the day, and that she's not the big screw-up everyone thinks she is. So, after conveniently looking at the convenient stars placed on her wall, Eloise all of a sudden has all of the answers. Eloise then heads off to the planetarium, where she finds Leon talking to the stars, aka talking to his mom. Eloise then tricks Leon into saying out loud exactly how he feels about his father and about missing his mom, and then pulls the little old switcheroo and gets the Big Prince to hear everything. Leon and his dad then reconcile, and everything is right as rain. Until Eloise gets back to the hotel and has to save the day again by fixing a mess that she was responsible for in the first place. Yeah. And because Eloise has serious main character syndrome, everything works out in her favor. Big Prince loves his hotel suite and says he's definitely going to be using the plaza for all of his important business in the future. The food for the ball is done in time and is just as brilliant as it was the first time. And the big star on top of the tree, Leon agrees to take Eloise to the big debutante ball later that night. At the ball, Leon and Eloise dance the night away, and her tutor and the rich debutante live happily ever after. And even Nanny gets a lovely dance with Sir Wilkes. And I am in need of a serious nap. And the thing I love about this movie, in actuality, isn't even the nostalgia from watching it around 482 times while practically holding my mother captive and forcing her to watch it with me. Mom, I'm sorry. No, it's actually the parts in between where it goes off the rails, because then it actually has some good dynamics and some really great lessons. Eloise is a train wreck, and the girls definitely got a lot to learn, but she's also got a lot to teach. In reality, some of our greatest lessons are taught to us by kids. They are unapologetically themselves. They say what's on their minds, and they don't get caught up in things that don't matter. If a kid likes you, they'll tell you. And if a kid doesn't like you, they'll definitely tell you that too. And if a kid really wants to do something, best believe they will find any way to do it. And Eloise, the movie, and the little girl highlight just how much adults lose when they grow up, and how many things get lost in all kinds of relationships because we don't communicate enough, or we don't say what we really want to. So it's definitely not a perfect movie, but it'll always be close to my heart. Besides, I still have big dreams about living at the plaza, and until then, I'm a girl on a mission. Until next time, this is Tiana Elise, signing out.